This is Brandon, and my presentation is about why certain types of comedy become outdated over time. And my case study is Mr. Bean. So my contents, basically, just how I've said it all out, is I first look at some context related to the comedy genre itself in today's world, and then I look into my aims and research plan on page 4. Then page 5, I've got a reading list, just so you can know what readings I looked at. And then I look at the relevant key terms that I found from the readings. And then pages 7 to 14, I summarize all the readings and then just gather some key points from them. And then page 15, I basically just summarize all the readings together and just what I found from them, uh, as a whole. And then page 16 is just some context about Mr. Bean itself, the show. And then pages 17 to 20, I will be comparing the readings with Mr. Bean, the TV show. And then page 21, I look at the future of Mr. Bean in a digital media perspective. And then page 22, I've got my conclusion. Page 23 is just my Harvard referencing bibliography. So I found that in June 2013, Richard Brody published an article via the New Yorker titled "The Demise of Physical Comedy," and I wanted to use that as just a starting statement to explore how some types of comedy become outdated when it's compared to modern society and their beliefs and values. Here I've just got a link of the actual article. So here's my aims and research plan. I'm looking to define the term slapstick comedy, then understanding how comedy can be related to specific cultural and digital developments. Then I develop an insight about how the TV show Mr. Bean is used to change the ideas of masculinity in comedy. And then I'm just explaining why certain types of comedy eventually become outdated over time in my conclusion. My reading list is this right here. So I looked at Slapstick and Comic Performance Comedy in Pain by Louise Peacock, which was published in 2014. Comedy Verite, Contemporary Sitcom Form, which was written by Brett Mills and published in 2004, which is the required reading. Then I look at Comedy, Creativity and Culture, a meta-modern perspective, which was written by Michael M. Meany, Tom Clark, and Lizzie Lanest, which was published in 2014 as well. And then I look at Side-Splitting Masculinity, Comedy, Mr. Bean, and the Representation of Masculinities in Contemporary Society, which was written by Patricia Neville and then published in 2009. Throughout all the readings, the three most significant key terms I looked deeply into are stated below. So the first one I came across was incongruity, which, in my own words, is just an unexpected disruption between ideas, personas, appearances, or outcomes. And then just down here, I've given an example of where you can see incongruity in the TV series Mr. Bean, which is my case study, like I said. So I've just put incongruity seen throughout the TV series Mr. Bean greatly because it's seen through Mr. Bean's absurd and irrational behavior contrasted with, everyday normal settings and scenarios and people and whatnot. Performance, obviously, performance is quite self-explanatory, but I just related the word performance in terms of a comedic, sort of perspective. And then what I've put is just the expressions of body language, comic timing, voice, movement, and interaction being used to create humor within an audience. And then once again, just an example of where you can see Mr. Bean using performance. It's basically just seen as a core aspect to the humor throughout the series because Mr. Bean himself he uses physical performance instead of dialogue to engage with the audience comedically. And then I looked into a term called social function, and in my own words, it's basically just humor being used to express cultural values, expose social tensions, challenge norms, or reinforce shared beliefs within a particular social group. So, kind of similar to the term social commentary, which is seen in a lot of modern media today. And then once again, I just thought I could, example with it in Mr. Bean. And what I found is that Social function is presented through the TV series Mr. Bean through the personality of the character himself. Because men in the 1990s in the UK, due to the influence of certain magazines and other media forms, they were seen to be, quite emotionally controlled, rational, and socially confident, quite very stereotypically, manly, if you will. But Mr. Bean, he appears to be the complete opposite of this by presenting himself as, more socially awkward, immature, and at times selfish. So, reading one, I've summarized it here. I've just basically said how Peacock explores slapstick humor and why people find humor in physical pain and embarrassment in this subgenre so funny. Um, so, slapstick comedy itself uses exaggerated, awkward moments and over the top physical comedy, such as characters falling over, crashing into things, getting hurt in unnecessary situations. And Peacock explains that audiences find the comedy in the acting of body language, facial expressions, movement, and timing, all to make these painful situations seem humorous rather than melancholic. And then my key points I got from reading one. So I've just got a quote for each key point, and then I've related that quote back to my question of how comedy does become outdated over time. So the first one here, comic pain and comic violence are performed within slapstick to make the audience laugh. Um, so what I got from that is that late 1880s slapstick comedy, which was kind of when it first started to be on the rise. It relied on physical humiliation and violence for humor, and I kind of researched how audiences of this period were entertained by the style of comedy, whereas viewers today, um, they might find this to be insensitive, repeated violence and embarrassment. Um, because today's audiences, they've addressed issues surrounding bullying, consent, and harmful behavior. It's a very big thing, in today's world. So it demonstrates comedic humiliation violence to become unpopular today. So my key point two, the quote I've got here is just basically where Louise Peacock states important variables lie not only in the source and nature of the pain, but also in the moral justifications provided. So as humour changes with society, jokes that were once accepted, including stereotypes about gender, race, or disability, may now be viewed as offensive because modern audiences prefer comedy to be more socially welcoming, which reinforces the idea that comedy is shaped by cultural attitudes of its time. And then my third key point, I've got the quote here on from Louise Peacock's reading. Sorry, Louise Peacock's writing, where she states repetition is central to the mechanics of slapstick humor. I found it on page 67. Um, and what I basically gathered from this to relate back to my question is how many older comedies use repeated jokes and predictable stereotypes for humor, but today's viewers, once again, they favor faster paced humor, irony, and self aware comedy due to the increasing rise of social media and how it's been shown to lower attention spans for younger audiences. So, as a result, traditional slapstick repetition may feel less entertaining to current audiences. So, reading two is Brett Mills' piece here, Comedy Verite and Contemporary Sitcom Form. So what I gathered is that Mills himself suggests that modern sitcoms have started using comedy verite techniques by using documentary conventions and filming techniques to appear more authentic and real. Because TV sitcoms have started using handheld cameras, awkward silences, and everyday settings to present humor that can be found in real life rather than over the top performances. So this allows audiences to feel like observers of genuine social interactions rather than just being, a mere audience member, if you will. And I've written here that Mills presents the idea that sitcoms needed to change in response to evolving audience expectations and values. So, because people became aware of television conventions and understood the difference between scripted and unscripted media, they developed a preference for humor that reflected ordinary life. So the key points I got from reading two, I set out the same way as before. Quote here: audiences are simultaneously distant and engaged. So although older sitcoms used exaggerated acting and canned laughter to comedically engage the audience, Modern society now prefers subtler humor that feels authentic. Mockumentary style comedies like The Office, they remove these laugh tracks to create awkward, realistic humor instead. And then my second key point, the quote here about how the audience is required to understand the codes that are being manipulated. So traditional sitcoms express their humor and comedy through laugh tracks and blatant comic timing, because today audiences recognize irony, parody, and self-awareness. So as modern society consumes television more regularly, they start to prefer humor that challenges them intellectually. And then my third key point here, how humor derives from the discomfort of the situation rather than from punchlines alone. It's basically just saying how older sitcoms used the same format of clear joke setups and exaggerated reactions. Today, cringe humor and uncomfortable realism reflects the audience's interests in subtle, recognizable situations. So sitcoms like The Office or Peep Show, they contain these awkward silences and failed social interactions to comedically engage with a modern society that finds relatability in these shows. So reading three, Comedy, Creativity and Culture, a Metamodern Perspective, which was written by Michael M. Meany, Tom Clark, and Lizzie Lanest, published in 2014. So what I got from this is how the writers suggest that modern humor is shaped by digital media, globalization, and culture. So modern audiences actively want to co-create and reinterpret comedic material. Modern comedy juxtaposes high and low culture, sincerity and parody, and ambiguity, rather than relying on strict comedic conventions. So comedy has now become recognized to constantly change and become further influenced by cultural and technological evolution. So key point one, creativity emerges from that system in operation. So what I've just written here is, in earlier television eras, broadcasters were instructed to control the comedic material, choosing what the audience was allowed to view. Today, streaming platforms and social media combined with audience feedback shape modern comedy, which proves comedy is always changing and, open to reinterpretation for today's society. My second key point here is that this quote here, collapse the binary oppositions of novelty and tradition and theory and practice. Comedy today blurs the line between serious and unfunny or scripted and real, instead of remaining in its strict categories. This can be seen in modern sitcoms that are presented in the style of a documentary. So overall, comedy's become more flexible, reflecting to, more hybrid forms of humor. Key point three, comedy draws from both tradition and novelty. Older forms of comedy can be redesigned. Modern comedy can juxtapose older styles into new formats, such as mockumentary realism and even internet meme culture. So, reading four is where Patricia Neville explores how comedy can influence ideas of masculinity in the real world. So, a character like Mr. Bean is presented as an awkward and infantilized and socially incompetent character, which juxtaposes traditional traits of male personalities in the 1990s. She implies that comedy can be successful by exaggerating or even undermining masculine stereotypes, using physical human silence rather than dialogue. Um, and Neville discusses that comedic representations can either reinforce or weaken societal expectations of gender, depending on what reaction the director wants to, receive from the audience. So this can make masculinity appear unstable and open to reinterpretation in modern media. So yeah, once again, here are my key points. Um, so here are the quotes. I'm just going to go straight to the findings I got from the quotes. So early comedy often relied on confident, authoritative male figures, but modern comedy shifts towards authentic and genuine male characters, which shows, how comedy does move with modern day culture and how men today don't need to be, this overly masculine character to be themselves. Um, and then key point two here is that contemporary comedy is often partnered with media systems and commercial success. So as the comedy genre stands, as a global franchise industry itself, the critiques of masculinity can divert into mainstream culture and be redesigned for mass entertainment. So comedy can, in a way, influence our society, which I think is very interesting. Um, and then older comedy relied on stable gender types, strong men, passive women. But today, comedy questions or disrupts these roles, sometimes presenting masculinity as awkward, fragile, or even performative. I think a good example is Claire and Phil from the series Modern Family. And then here I just basically gather all my findings from the readings. And I basically understand how the writers propose the idea that comedy is constantly evolving and is shaped by media norms. Um, and the writers, themselves, they present the fact that comedy relies on exaggeration, discomfort, or recognizable social norms to create humor, and how this structure has developed over time alongside society and the world itself. And it highlights how, certain types of comedy can become outdated over time. So here I've just written some context about the TV show Mr. Bean. So Mr. Bean is a TV sitcom character played by actor Rowan Atkinson, who first aired on screens in the UK in 1990. The character is presented to audiences to exude an introverted, socially awkward, yet strangely charming personality. The TV sitcom rapidly became one of the most globally recognized comedies, as it was so effortlessly understood by non-English speaking countries. And there's a lot of success that came from the show, international merchandise, and animated series, feature films. And the TV show remains one of the most popular sitcoms known around the world today because of the use of its physical slapstick humor that can be translated to any demographic or language without a major use of dialogue. So the relevance of reading one and Mr. Bean itself is how Peacock explains the humor behind characters experiencing pain, awkwardness, or failure, which is exactly what makes Mr. Bean entertaining and successful. The sitcom Mr. Bean uses physical humor, embarrassment, and exaggerated reactions to comedically engage its audience. Um, and then in a different light, jokes in Mr. Bean that audiences might have found funny in the 1990s may now appear unrealistic to modern viewers. So I'm almost, giving a negative aspects of the reading and Mr. Bean itself. Reading two, Mill suggests how sitcoms often get their humor from everyday situations that feel familiar to audiences. And this is relevant to Mr. Bean because the comedy takes place in ordinary settings like supermarkets, restaurants, or doctors' offices. Mr. Bean, his behavior in these situations is what creates the humor to the audiences. But then again, a negative light could be that today's society may find Mr. Bean to be unchallenging and basic, because it comes from the suggestion about how modern viewers prefer more realism or modern humor styles that can engage them intellectually. And then the relevance of reading Free and Mr. Bean is that the reading is relevant to Mr. Bean because it explores how comedy changes depending on cultural context and audience interpretation. The reading suggests how humor shifts between different styles and meanings, which is relevant to Mr. Bean because the humor is physical and universal, allowing any sort of language to enjoy and understand the TV sitcom. But however, modern audiences may not respond well to Mr. Bean because the TV sitcom has stable meanings and clear punchlines that do not leave interpretation open to modern viewers. So again, quite similar to what I wrote about Brett Mills' relevance of the reading and Mr. Bean. Patricia Neville, she focuses on how the character Mr. Bean challenges traditional ideas of masculinity, because Mr. Bean represents a childish, awkward, and emotionally mature man, which contrasts the stereotypical strong, confident traits of a man often seen in media. Um, the TV sitcom uses the character traits of Mr. Bean to create humor by removing the expectations of how men were presented in the media, which, then influenced society. Um, as many TV sitcoms in the 90s only wrote male characters to be physically strong and socially confident, so shows like Only Fools and Horses, men behaving badly. Mr. Bean, he removes these male stereotypes and presents his unique personality to be entertaining to audiences, while he himself exudes his own version of confidence. But modern audiences may view the TV sitcom Mr. Bean as a show that's stereotypically adapted to still stay relevant today compared to other TV sitcoms in the 1990s because it was just so ahead of its time. Uh, Digital media and the impact of Mr. Bean in the future. Sorry, I'm not sure why that's in capital. So streaming services allow older comedies to remain easily accessible, meaning Mr. Bean can continue reaching new international audiences. This allows new cultures to watch the TV sitcom and give their interpretations of the sitcom, which can be compared to current views and how the show is viewed by all demographics. And digital media such as TikTok and Instagram use shortened videos that can allow creators to break TV shows into the scenes clips they want to upload themselves with ease. So for the comedy genre, so for the comedy genre, it actually means that the joke may become more important than the full narrative. And regarding Mr. Bean, iconic scenes can be instantly cut to the laugh out loud parts. Sorry, the laugh out loud parts, which may engage today's audiences in terms of their shortened attention spans. In conclusion, throughout all the readings, the main idea gathered from each one implied that comedy and humor have changed drastically from the late 1800s compared to modern day. And it's because the readings also show that comedy is a social function that adapts and changes with the social and industrial developments that surround it. In another light, this proves that some types of comedy do in fact become outdated over time. And I think using the TV sitcom Mr. Bean as a case study, it demonstrates how slapstick humor and performance, although funny in the time period, it doesn't stand today. However, the sitcom's use of having a socially awkward and irrational male as the main character shows how Mr. Bean was a show before its time when comparing it, ahead of its time when comparing it to how male characters are viewed in popular sitcoms today. Um, a further question that can be asked by using the research and case study could be, what will society view as its main source of humor in the future? So yep, that's my presentation. Here's just my bibliography and referencing, and then over here I have got the my research report as well. So yep, this is it here. So just a summary and then key points just fleshed out a bit more, and then obviously shortened into the presentation. And then I also have my findings from the readings just put out in bullet points, and then once again my referencing. Thank you very much.